Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Candice, and on this channel I do all sorts of different videos from a Christian perspective. Today you are popping in our Keepers at Home series, part 2. We are talking about 4 things to do before we organize our homes. So like before you decide to tackle an organizing project, before you organize your car, before you do any of it. These are the steps to take, guys. That's what we're going to be focusing in on today. But first, before we get started, I want to go ahead and pray for this video. I've gotten into the routine of praying for all my videos, so that's how we're going to start today, guys. God, thank you for making us stewards of your resources, for giving us responsibility over the things that you have given us, whether it be our homes, our cars, our relationships, our finances, even our own bodies, Papa. Thank you for giving us these responsibilities and for giving us opportunities to show other people your love and opportunities to just show you our love, you know? I ask that you would bring anybody to this video that you would like to hear it, and I ask that you would bless them immensely through what is spoken here today. I ask these things in Jesus Christ's name. Okay. So, as I said, I'm a Christian, I do Christian videos, so every video that I have, there is probably going to be a Bible verse attached to it. And when I was praying about being a steward, it directly relates to Luke chapter 12, verses 42 and 43, which is what I'm kind of basing today's video on, okay? It says, "And the Lord said, 'Who then is that faithful and wise steward, whom his Lord shall make ruler over his household, to give them their portion of meat in due season? Blessed is that servant, whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing.'" So, if you actually look up the definition of the word steward, steward means like a house manager or an overseer, like somebody who is responsible for taking care of possessions, property, things like that. And basically what Jesus is saying is he made us stewards of the things that he's given us. So he's given us, homes, he's given us cars, he's given us jobs, he's given us finances, he's given us family members, he's given us a marriage or children. He gives us all of these things for us to be good stewards over them. And he trusts us with these. There's a bug around here. He trusts us with these things. And he wants to see how well we handle them and how well we take care of them. And when it comes to stewarding our homes, I think it's one of it's about as big as stewarding relationships, because stewarding our home is kind of the center of our life, you know what I mean? You get up, you're at home, you get your breakfast for the day, you make your lunch if you're going out to work, you take care of family, you bring friends over, our homes are kind of the center of everything, as they should be. So when stewarding our home and thinking about organizing our home, we want to start by realizing, of course, that no organizing method, no cleaning method is going to work for every single person out there, okay? Each of us are unique individuals. Each of us have unique hobbies, unique pursuits, unique things that we want our home to function in a certain way because that's what works for us. And so you see a lot of these organizing videos out there that are promoting specific methods or specific ways, or your coffee should be here, your teapot should be over there, this should be here, And I think it's important to always take those types of videos with a grain of salt, okay? I'm not going to promote a certain method of organizing. I am going to give you tools so you can figure out how you want it organized yourself and what works for you. That's where we're going to start, okay? So I think the easiest way to figure out what it is that you want to organize or how you want to organize is to ask yourself one question. What isn't working for you right now? And that could be, something as simple as you open the door to your home and you have to push the shoes out of the way because there's shoes on the floor. It could be what isn't working for you is how the paper and mail and stuff somehow keeps getting piled up on your kitchen table, It could be that a certain chair in your bedroom ends up being a drop zone for all of your stuff and you don't like it, finding out what doesn't work for you will usually start your journey on what you need to organize or what needs a little bit of fixing, a little bit of revamping. So in the 4 things to do before you organize, the first thing, first and foremost, of course, asking yourself that question, and then making a list. So a lot of people, when you start organizing, they're like, oh, I get so excited. They go grab bins and a bunch of other things, and then they sit down and actually start organizing and realize, oh, I bought 20 bins, but I only really need 2, you know? So before doing the bin shopping and all of that, I would say to make a list of the basic functions or the important uses for the space that you want to organize or that you want to change. And I would break that down by room, by zone, by category, whichever way makes your brain work the best, okay? So for me, when I think of organizing something, I usually break it down by room, because that's just what makes sense to me, okay? Some people might break it down by category, like I know the Marie Kondo stuff breaks it down by category, like clothing, all paperwork, you know, but when I have things scattered about the house, I don't want to have to haul them all together. So for what works for me is by room, okay? And again, each person is going to be different. So for example, my living room, the room I am in right now, I realized the other day that there was going to be a new piece of cat furniture that was going to be entering into my home. And for the purposes of my living room, the way that it was arranged a few days ago, it would not work with the new piece of furniture coming in. So I knew that, okay, I'm going to have to sit down, I'm going to have to think about a way to rearrange and organize this so it'll function well, so I can bring the new cat tree in and the cats can have fun climbing, but making sure it's not in a space where they're going to climb on my curtains, you know, things like that. So making a list of what's important to you, like in people's kitchens. Some people are really big bakers, some people are really big cooks, some people don't really use their kitchen except for the microwave or their coffee pot, you know. You got to figure out what is the most important to you in the space and what you need it to function as. If you're the person who is making 2 or 3 cups of coffee every single morning, having a coffee maker or the way you make coffee prominently on your counter is probably going to be important to you and make your life more efficient than having it up in a cupboard that you have to bring down every day, you know, versus someone who is baking at least 2 or 3 times a week, like myself, you know. So I have space on my counter where I have jars of all my different flours and sugars and things like that that I use pretty much almost daily for baking and cooking. Now, if you're the type of person who doesn't really cook at all, having a baking station on your counter is going to be pretty pointless. So making a list of what's important to you in the space, defining the space and making a list of what's important is number 1, guys. What it needs to function as. Is it functioning as an office? Is the room functioning as a bedroom? Is the room functioning, you know, for a bedroom, but you also have a desk in there because you don't really have space for an office somewhere else, you know? Like, just writing down the functions will really help you figure out what you want to do with the space, organizing wise, okay? And of course, when you do this, taking in those special considerations. So like, if you're going to organize a closet, a clothes closet, okay, thinking about before you pull all the wardrobe out, you know, and start throwing things on your bed to reorganize it, thinking about, okay, do I like my clothes organized by type? Do I like my dresses here, my skirts, and my tops? Or do I like it organized by the length, because I have things that I want to store underneath? So do I want all the really long things together and then all the shorter things together? Do I want it organized by color? Do I like it by rainbow preferences, you know, like the colors of the rainbow organizing? It just depends on what you like, you know, and thinking about that beforehand just really helps the process go along much smoother. Okay, number 2 on the list of things to do before organizing is to take that list of all the functions and all the things you need it to be and break it down into like manageable tasks and steps. So like when I had to rearrange my living room the other day, I realized that, okay, in order for this to work with the new cat tree coming in, I had to swap 2 very large pieces of furniture, this giant television cabinet over here, as well as my piano. So I knew in order to do that, I'm like, okay, first things first, I'm gonna need to vacuum my carpet and sweep my floors, then roll up my carpet. So of course the moving of the furniture from side to side will be much easier. Then of course I had to empty this giant cabinet and dust everything that was in there, because you know, when you go to organize, you find a lot of dust and everything needs to be dusted. It's a part of the process. And then, of course, having to get some extra muscle around to take this cabinet, because it's in a couple of pieces, and move it from one side of the room to the other. And then to move the piano to the other side of the room. Then, of course, there's, you know, redoing and putting all the things back in the cabinet and putting the carpet back. So I broke it down in my head in these steps. You could always write steps like this down, like if you're not a super organized person by, you know, nature. This would be the kind of things that you write it down to make it into small, more manageable tasks. And that way you can keep yourself on track much easier and not like get ahead of yourself. Like if I had gone ahead and tried moving the cupboard without emptying it, it would not have gone well. Or if, you know, I didn't roll up the carpet first before starting to move my piano, like I would have rolled over the carpet and snagged it, you know, stuff like that. So breaking it down into steps, like if you have a whole room that you want to organize, maybe breaking it down into zones first. You know, like if you want to organize your bedroom, break it down into, okay, I'm going to organize my dresser this day. I'm going to organize my closet this day because it'll take such and such amount of time to do this and such amount of time to do that. That way you can fit the organizing into your schedule without overwhelming yourself. Because we don't want to like start an organizing project, get halfway through it and realize, oh, the rest of my day is booked and I now have to leave this halfway undone until tomorrow or the next day or whenever I get more free time. You know, we want to be able to break it down so we can do a task within the amount of time that we have for it. Then, number 3 is to prioritize. Like, you may have 100 organizing projects you want to do, you may only have 10, you may only have 5, but I think the best way to prioritize them is to always do the one that bothers you the most first. So if the shoes lying by the front door bother you, like really bother you, get that done first. If your junk drawer doesn't bother you so much, do it last. If your junk drawer really, really bothers you, but the shoes don't, do the junk drawer first. Because when you do the one that bothers you the most first, you get the most gratification out of it, the most satisfaction. And that satisfaction and gratification will then give you more motivation to keep going on your organizing projects. At least that's how it works for me. All right, number 4. Once you have made your list, broken it down into tasks, prioritized, now we need to get real with ourselves and honest about our things, about our possessions, about why we have them, do we use them, what is the reason we're keeping them if they are no longer useful to us, things like that. It's like when you go through your kitchen, you're going through your pots and pans, and you realize there's one pan that, you know, you probably haven't used in like 2 years, but you're like, oh, I'm keeping it just in case maybe that pan should go in the very back of the cupboard when you're organizing, or maybe it should go in a storage bin of things that you only pull out once in a while. Or if you're really, really honest with yourself and you know you haven't used it in a few years and you know that you are probably not going to use it, and you know that there's another pan that you have that maybe could serve kind of the same purpose, you might consider donating or giving the item to someone you know will use it. You know what I mean? Like, I find that when we realize that something is no longer useful to us, giving it to someone you know that could benefit from using it or who would really value it makes the letting go process much easier. So for the new cat tree that I am getting, it's new to me, but not new in the sense of being new. It is someone that I know who has cats. She has cats and she bought them this tree, but they do not use the tree, and she has gotten to the point where she's like, okay, they don't use this. They're not going to use this. It takes up a lot of space. It is no longer functional. It's no longer functional in her home. So she was like, okay, well, I need to get this thing out of my home. And she thought of me. I have 3 cats, and they are kittens. They love climbing. I mean, I've got one laying on top of this giant cabinet right now taking a nap. Like, they love being up and climbing things. So she was like, okay, well, would you like this tree? And I was like, yeah. I mean, I already have a smaller cat tree, but that cat tree will then move into another room for them to play on. So giving it new life by giving it to someone who will use it and appreciate it just makes it that much easier to let go. Because let's face it, God doesn't want us to be keeping a bunch of things that we don't use. I mean, that's kind of like hoarding in a way, like God in the Bible, he tells us, if we see someone who is not clothed properly for the seasons or just not clothed, we are to give them extra clothes if we have them, So like if we have 7 winter coats and we only wear 2 of them, why not give the others to someone who would really appreciate it and who could use it, or who can't afford one themselves? Being able to have the opportunity to bless other people through the things we already have that we no longer use is a great opportunity to have. And as Christians, we are supposed to bless other people. So if I have such and such amount of purses and I'm never going to use probably 3 or 4 of them again, but they're really nice purses, why not give them to a single mom, who's trying to get a better job and who kind of needs the wardrobe to go with it, but she can't afford it, something like that. Just makes it so much easier. Now, of course, being honest with ourselves also can go to just about anything you have. Realizing that it's not aesthetically pleasing to you. Being honest about that picture on the wall that you've just had there for like 10 years, but you're like, do I really like that? Or has it just been there as a space filler? Being honest about our clothing size. Do I need this many different sizes of clothing, or is this the size that I'm staying at? Stuff like that. Then, of course, if you realize that something isn't working for you or that something needs to go, then you can do that with grace, and be like, okay, this no longer serves me a purpose, but I know someone who I can give it to who will love it. And if you don't have somebody you can give it to, you can always donate it, and somebody will find it. Like, I go to thrift stores a lot, and I have been so grateful for the clothing items and the random things that I have found there that serve a really good purpose for me, but obviously did not serve a purpose for somebody else, and so they donated them. And then I was able to get them at a price that was affordable for me, and they blessed me in my life, Okay. Now, of course, we need to understand, too, and be real with the fact that the first time you organize something may not be the last time you organize it. So when I bought from a thrift store, actually this white rack, it just goes up and has 3 bars across the top. I mean, it's meant to hang extra blankets and stuff like that on. I bought it from the thrift store. I painted it because it was a horrible yellow color to begin with. I painted it white. And I originally bought it because I was like, okay, I'm going to use it in my living room to hang extra blankets on. Right? I had it in my living room for a while. And then I realized, I don't really like it in my living room. Just the size it was, and the functionality wasn't working for the size it was. So I was like, okay, well, let me try it someplace else for a different use. So I ended up bringing a basket into my room, into the living room, to store blankets and folded, and that works much better. So now the other shelf, or the other rack, ended up in my room and my bedroom, because there's those clothes that are not, you've worn once, but they're not clean enough to put in the closet, but they're not dirty enough to put in the hamper yet, and you might wear them again. That's where they ended up. It was on that rack. And that worked for me for about 3 or 4 years. It worked, and it was functional, and I was happy with it. And then as some few pieces of furniture, other furniture pieces changed in my room, I realized, this isn't as functional for me in this space anymore. Right? So I found a different organizational thing, shall we say, for putting the extra clothes that, are not fully dirty yet on. And then I'm moving that rack now into another room. And I think that's one of those things where we need to have grace with ourselves and realize, okay, just because I organize it one way doesn't mean that way is necessarily going to work for me. I think we should really view any organizing as and experiment. Like when we organize a cupboard, be like, okay, well, what if I try to put my cups here? Will this work better for me? Will this make me happier? You know, will this be more functional in my daily life? And sometimes when we finally get it organized and it's exactly the way we want it, it's a beautiful thing. But sometimes it takes a few tries to get there, and that is totally fine. Like, don't be afraid of failure in this, guys. But I think it's important for us to organize, to steward our homes and our resources well, because number one, it makes our lives a whole lot easier. I mean, can you imagine getting up in the morning and tripping over the clothes you left on the floor the night before, trying to stumble to get your alarm clock to turn off, you know, trying to find that hair tie that somehow got lost in the drawer, or it's in your purse, or maybe it's in the backpack that you had last week, and then, you know, trying to get your coffee together, but no coffee mugs are clean, you know, or they're in the wrong cupboard and you can't find the one you want, you know, like, it's so much nicer when we can wake up in the morning and things are where we expect them to be. They're organized. We can just grab what we need because it's already there. You know, it's already in a space. It has a home. You don't lose things as often and stuff like that. But I think that's about wrapping up this video. So those are the 4 things to do before actually like getting to the nitty-gritty of organizing. And then after you do these things, then you can go buy bins, right? Because then you'll know exactly how many bins you need and what you need them for. All right. I think I'll see you guys next time. Bye.